and he came out in favor of them. But throughout his life, he preferred horses to motor cars. The man who was recognized as the leading international authority on traffic control hated to drive. He was driven everywhere by a chauffeur. Never take anything for granted. Spitting in a limousine owned by Dade County, Florida, carries a $50 fine even though the country doesn't own any limousines. Don't be half safe. It's against the law in Arizona for a pedestrian suddenly to leave a curb or other place of safety and walk or run into the path of a vehicle. Strangers when we met. Gaston, South Carolina, population 1,200, got its first stoplight in 1985. A few hours after it went up, a motorist tried to run the red light and caused a 4-car pileup. Fast talk. Speeders will try just about any excuse to wiggle out of a ticket. The most common is, I gotta get to the bathroom. The police have heard most excuses 100 times, but a few new ones crop up every year. Would you believe? A housewife in California explained that she was running out of gasoline and trying to build up enough speed to coast her home 5 miles away. A pet shop owner in Cleveland claimed he was speeding to test a car he was thinking of buying. A doctor in Massachusetts insisted I was trying to get home with a roast beef sandwich while it was still hot. A volunteer fireman from Long Island maintained he was speeding to Lenox Hill Hospital just to see how long it would take in case he ever had to drive a patient there. A hatch-check girl in Hollywood blamed her good looks. I had to drive fast to keep sailors from trying to get into my car, she said. After being clocked at 100 miles per hour, a cowboy in San Antonio said he had just left the car wash and was trying to blow dry his pickup. The bank clerk in Rapid City, South Dakota, said he was in a hurry to get to a gas station before he ran out of gas. A driver in Annapolis said he was going too fast because a bee had flown into the window and he was preoccupied with killing it. He produced a dead bee as evidence. The police officer inspected the bee and spied dust on the wings. The man admitted that the bee had been dead for months. He carried it around as used for an excuse. A nurse in Atlanta said she had just received a potent shot at the hospital and the doctors urged her to get home very fast. The woman led the California Highway Patrol on a 150-mile chase at 90 miles per hour and didn't stop till she ran out of gas. She told the officer that her accelerator pedal was stuck. A truck salesman was stopped for speeding at 90 miles per hour in a 40 miles per hour zone near Reno. He claimed he was going into 50 mile per hour headwinds and thought it would balance it out. A teenager in Oakland was pulled over for speeding in a stolen police car. He grinned and said someone had stolen his car and he wanted to make a citizen's arrest, but he needed something official looking. So he stole the police car. As with the rest of the excuses, the police officers listened with patient good humor and didn't believe a word. Only in America. On November 16, 1983, many wore black, but nobody wept as the town of Caldwell, Idaho buried Red-Eyed Pete. Pete was the last traffic light to be removed from Interstate 80, the last obstacle to non-stop coast-to-coast travel. 3 licensed morticians were on hand for the ceremony. Pete, decked out with a pumpkin head, straw arms and legs, was unhung, lay in a horse-drawn hearse, and carried a mile to the grave. Mayor Al McCuskey delivered the eulogy in poetry. Several hundred people watched the roughed wood casket being lowered into the ground. The gray headstone read, "Here lies Red-Eyed Pete. One red light you know you need no longer beat." Time on her hands. Lori LaJourney, the only meter maid in Freeport, Maine, quit after a week on the job in 1983. "Handing out tickets made me feel kind of guilty," she said. "It wasn't bad until everyone started noticing what I was doing. I felt like I was on display or something." The 20-year-old college student was not replaced. Reserve police officers took out her work of handling illegal parking by summer tourists. It was an easy switch. Meter maid was strictly a Kentucky colonial type of title. The town had no parking meters. Righting the wrong. Richard Roderick, a policeman in Plymouth, Massachusetts, was transferred from his downtown beat in 1983 because he wrote too many parking tickets. Merchants complained that he was scaring away customers. One of his better days, Roderick wrote 50 tickets. On another, he ticketed the town street sweeper. Park and parcel. New York City is probably the hardest place in the world to find a parking space. No one knows it better than United Parcel Service, and you can say that again. By 1986, the delivery service reportedly owed the city 1.2 million unpaid tickets. Time waits for no one. 3 members of the federal government went to Allentown, Pennsylvania in 1986. Their mission? To discuss the city's problem of collecting $90,800 in parking fines run up by servicemen. When they left the meeting, they found a $3 parking ticket on their car. Cars de ballet. India's only dancing traffic police tripped the light fantastic for the last time in December 1985. Head Constable Inder Singh Tandwar, 43, gave his final performance at his regular traffic box near Parliament, the busiest, most celebrated intersection in New Delhi. His dazzling display of arm signals and blur of fancy footwork stopped traffic. When he finished with his heel click and a bow, he was cheered, mobbed, hugged, and carried around in the intersection on the shoulders of admirers. Over the years, drivers regularly parked their cars to watch him perform. Children showered him with sweets. Prime Minister Arvind Kejriwal often stopped and applauded. "I've accomplished my job," if I have made people smile," said Tenmore, who ended 13 high-stepping years without writing a ticket. Chapter 8. Odd Parts Bin. Standing on the corner, the bus service that tried the hardest to stay on schedule ran between Hanley and Barnell in England. In fact, drivers quit stopping for passengers along the route in 1975 before would-be riders got wise. Buses tore past lines of up to 30 people. If the buses stopped to pick up passengers, they couldn't keep the timetable. And the bus, said a bus official. "Are you kidding?" Floyd Clymer, the Murtaugh, Colorado, was America's youngest automobile dealer. In 1960, when he was 11 years old, he started his business in the office of his father, a doctor. A born go-getter, Floyd billed himself as the kid agent for Rio Maxwell and Cadillac cars and for Thomas Autobuy and Yale motorcycles. In his first 2 years, he sold 26 cars. As a grown-up, he stayed true to his first love, the motor car. He founded a publishing company that specialized in books about automobiles, motorcycles, and motor racing. Space Shop. Finding a parking spot in San Francisco isn't easy. It took Harry Gunton 19 years. In 1966, Gunton worked for the Prospectors office. He put his name on a writing list for a space in downtown, city-owned garage. He guessed that he might have to wait a few months. One day his telephone rang. The voice at the other end said the parking space was his. The news arrived a mite late. In 1985, Gunton had been retired for 2 months. It loses a lot in translation. Donald Carroll, an American tourist, rented a car in Tokyo, Japan in 1984. In the glove compartment, he found a booklet of instructions. It was written in Japanese-English, or possibly English-Japanese. A sample paragraph. When a passenger of foot heave in sight, tootle the horn, trumpet at him melodiously first, but if he still obstacles your passage, then tootle him with vigor. 1 in a million. A Central State College exchange student from Iran was looking for a car in 1960. He walked into a showroom in Edmond, Oklahoma. Scarcely able to speak English, he was ripe to be cheated by a shady dealer. But the owner was the dealership, Craig Ayers, and Bob Ford gave him a fair deal. Excuse me. The student, Bob Arzami, remembered. 15 years later, he was the buyer for the Iranian Contractors Association. He placed an order with Ayers and Ford for 750 dump trucks and 350 pickups. Weather-wise, John Gosson of Syracuse, New York, decided it was too cold for him to drive around on his motorcycle during the winter. In 1983, Gosson, a car mechanic, stuffed $7,500 into his leather jacket and zoomed off to buy a new car. On the way, the cash flew out of his pocket. He recovered only $3,240. A few months later, Gosson received a postcard from San Francisco. It read, "John, weather's great. It took me a while to find out who to thank for this great vacation. It was like seventh heaven, picking and gathering loose bills on the highway. Having a great time. Sincerely thankful," grumbled Gosson. "The guy's gotta be a jerk." They only came out at night. They talk ugly trucks in Austin. There since 1984, the ugliest pickup truck in Texas contest has been held annually at the Hogeye Bait Shop. John Kelso, an Austin newspaper columnist, dreamed up the event. He keeps the rules simple. There are no entry forms or fees. A truck has only to come and go under its own power to qualify. "We don't want to leave the bait shop management with a yard full of trashed out trucks," Keslow says, picking up competing for the coveted ugliest title, are fit only for sore eyes. They're wrinkled, bent, cracked, and sagging all over. Most look like they haven't been washed in years. A good hosing might knock off the last spots of paint. Doug Koleski's hunk of junk, a 1966 International Harvester, won over 71 other mess heaps in 1985. He said his life had been changed by the honor. He bought his truck at the scrapyard in Italy for $350 in 1976 while serving in the Air Force. Thank you. At the time, he also owned a Jaguar. When he returned to the United States, military law allowed him to bring only one vehicle with him. He brought the truck and left the Jaguar behind. His entrance into the Ugly Truck Hall of Fame wasn't all easy cruising. First, Leon McCad's 1964 Ford with a bullet hole in the windshield was named grand champion. The judges were so busy checking for ugliness that they failed to notice McCann's inspection sticker. It was out of date. The truck couldn't be driven on the street, and so it was ineligible for the contest. Koleski, who had finished second, was awarded the title. He didn't mind that it was too late to switch the top prizes. He preferred the second prize, a pair of foam dice, to the first prize, each for two at a local taco palace. Classy. Like tires, like feet. Can women's feet go flat from riding in autos? Dr. H.L. Goldwag feared so. He was so small bunions either. He was no small bunions either. As chairman of the scientific community of the New York State Pediatric Society in 1930, Goldwag warned the nation to beware of automobile foot. Too much riding, he asserted, was causing women's tootsies to weaken and spread like root beer on Minnesota flats. This guy. Eyeball benders. How a driver sees a space depends on his or her body shape, according to the British researcher. Short, chubby men and women are likely to underestimate their width in their cars and will try to squeeze through spaces that are too narrow, says Arthur Crisp. Result, rumpled fenders. On the other hand, tall, thin drivers tend to overestimate their width and that of their cars will usually hesitate to stop in front of a gap in traffic. Result, pow, from the rear. The back of my neck to you. School bus drivers in California got tired of making empty threats like, "How many times do I have to tell you to sit down?" So in 1984, they went to school to learn assertiveness. The popularity of 3-hour course came as no surprise to Karen Finkel, executive director of the National School Transportation Association. She considered driving a school bus a high-stress occupation. Show me a teacher who would spend an hour with his or her back turned on a room full of 90 kids, she said. Beats a banana split. Doreen Noland of Exburg, Massachusetts, brought a car for 999 bananas. Noland was listening to the radio WMRC in 1984 when she heard a King Ford Mercury ad. The pitch, Crazy Carlo. In real life, Carlo Binjvanani, the dealership's general manager, announced that he'll sell a car for 999 bananas. Nolan, 24, thought it was a joke. After 15 minutes, curiosity got the better of her. She had to find out. She called the owner of the Milford dealership, James Peltikas. Peltikas was shaken. Everyone knows bananas is slang for dollars. But an offer was an offer. He stood by it. Nolan peeled off 999 bananas and got the car, a 1975 green Fiat that Peltikas said was worth about $2,000. The Salvation Army got the bananas worth about $120. Ford Mercury got publicity throughout the United States and Europe worth about $1 million. It was a fruitful deal all around. The sensational Scandia diet. Felicia Scandia of Salici walked into a hospital in 1952. He complained of a bellyache. After a brief examination, he was hurried into the operation room. Doctors removed 28 knives from his stomach, plus half a dozen metal coins, 8 metal keys, 3 silver spoons, and bits of glass. That's graphic. Scadia, 21, said he had been training to make good a boost that he could eat an automobile, windows, doors, and tires and all. Ballet Russe de Moncargo. You can see a boardwalk in lots of places, but if you wanted to see a car dance, you had to go to California. A group calling itself the Golf for Loans put on the dances, beginning in 1983. Members first combed San Francisco for a parking lot, or rather a stage, that had a really potential emotional mood. They finally chose a bus lot beneath a huge coffee sign. On the busy night, theater goers drove up, and those with reservations got a place on the edge of the lot. The only lights came from the performing cars, waiting on the sidelines to go on. Cars rolled onto the stage singingly or in groups. They circled, interwove, flashed their lights, shot out of the lot, sped around the block, and returned. They raced directly for the audience in a clanging chorus line and stopped with a sequel of breaks. They danced with live actors or by themselves. There we go, kind of. They worked together in an amazing way, declared Carl Danskin, 27, the leader of the dance group, following a 1985 ballet by an old Dodge pickup and Ford Japanese imports. One of his scriptwriters, Melinda Mills, wrote a piece about a woman who lived with her baby in a 1971 Chrysler Newport. Like most of the car dances, it was deeper than it appeared. Mills explained the meaning to puzzled viewers. My goal is to balance the spiritual aspects of people with cars, he said. In 1983, the car dances won an award from the Bay Area Theater. Critics circled honoring new directions in this theater. Okay, we're almost there. Thank goodness. I think my brain is going into a cramp reading this. If that's even possible, which I don't know. Well, your brain is a muscle, so maybe it is. Despite the recognition, the group didn't grow rich. The actors had to dance their own cars. They received only $10 a performance, plus gas money. The top tickets sold for $4, less than a tenth of the price of a Broadway show. The 1985 season was the most successful financially. A private fund donated $1,000. With that, the $4,000 from the ticket receipts. Ooh, did you hear that? Did you hear that pop? That was my shoulder. Excuse me. The group just about broke even. If I told you once, I told you 1,000 times. Toll collectors on the Maurice J. Taubman Memorial Bridge in Boston collected money and hard-to-believe stories. One collector, Paul Thomas, a 26-year-old veteran, by 1965, gave as good as he received. He, a driver, asked, "How do you get to Harvard?" Thomas had a standard answered. "Study," he told them. "Study."